Get this right. I'm scrolling through the news the other day and bam, there's this article about AI, like writing music for commercials. And I'm thinking, are jingle writers going to be out of a job?
Crazy.
Right.
It's wild.
But I mean, that's just like one tiny example. AI is everywhere you look these days, right? And you're obviously here to like really get into it. So that's what we're doing today. We're going beyond those headlines, figuring out not just what AI does, but what it actually is.
Right.
We're diving into this transcript you shared, kind of like our AI 101 crash course.
Yeah.
So first things first, what is artificial intelligence? This source, it defines it as like machines doing stuff that usually needs human smarts, you know?
Yeah.
But then that makes me wonder, does it actually have to be human-like to be intelligent? We think about creativity, emotions, that whole thing. That feels pretty uniquely human.
That's a huge question, right? And honestly, the definition of AI, it's always changing. Like, even early on, you had those chess programs beating grandmasters.
Yeah.
Total revolution back then. But they weren't writing symphonies or anything.
Yeah, I remember hearing about those insane memory calculations.
No.
But not exactly poetry slams, haha.
Exactly.
Which actually, that brings up something cool from the source. They break it down into these three core things AI tries to copy. Learning, creativity, and then self-awareness. That last one always gets me kind of sci-fi, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Gets the imagination going. And, I mean, self-aware AI, that's still mostly theoretical, right? But where we're seeing massive progress is the learning part. Specifically, this thing called machine learning.
Machine learning.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of intimidating, but I'm here for it.
Nah, it's actually simpler than it sounds. Basically, it's all about algorithms, like instructions for computers. But, and here's the wild part, these algorithms, they change. They adapt based on the data they're fed, not just following some pre-programmed rule book anymore.
So they're like actually learning, but how? We giving these algorithms textbooks or what?
More like giving them a giant puzzle and saying, figure it out, which, I don't know about you, but that's both amazing and slightly creepy to me.
Totally. So it's not just one type of learning, though, right? There's got to be different ways they learn.
You got it. 3 main categories, according to this source. Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and then there's reinforcement learning.
Okay, let's start with supervised learning. Break it down for me.
Okay, so picture this. You're teaching a kid to recognize you in photos, right? So you show them a ton of pictures, some with you, some without, and you're telling them, this is you, this isn't you. Supervised learning, same idea. We feed the AI tons of data, but it's labeled so it can pick up on patterns and start making predictions.
So like the facial recognition on our phones? Or the self-driving cars everyone's talking about?
Bingo. Those are like prime examples. Oh, and you know what else is wild? Those CAPI TCHA tests online, the click all the traffic lights things. You're training AI right now by doing those, labeling data without even realizing it.
Wow, sneaky, sneaky. Those KPCHAs are up to more than I thought. Okay, so that's supervised, but what about unsupervised learning? That sounds even more mysterious.
This is where things get really cool. Unlike supervised, where we're feeding it labels, unsupervised learning, it's all about letting the algorithm loose on data and just seeing what it finds. Patterns, connections, things we might miss.
That is kind of mind-blowing. So, like, what are some examples of that in action?
Think about, like, your music streaming service. It recommends songs based on what you've listened to, right?
Yeah, all the time, because you listen to.
Exactly. That's unsupervised learning. Finding links in your taste that maybe you didn't even realize were there.
Or like those targeted ads. It's kind of creepy how well they work sometimes.
Totally. Like, it knows what you're thinking. And it's not just consumer stuff either. This source, it talks about unsupervised learning being used in genomics, like analyzing DNA. Super high-level stuff.
Really makes you realize how much potential there is.
Huge potential.
So we've got supervised, unsupervised. That leaves reinforcement learning. What's the deal with that one?
Okay, so reinforcement learning, it's like learning by trial and error. You ever like really try to master a game?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So you try different stuff, right? Good moves get you rewards, bad moves, you get penalized. Eventually, you figure out how to win. That's the basic idea.
So it's like training a dog, but with algorithms instead of treats.
Exactly. You got it. And here's the thing about reinforcement learning that I think is so interesting. The AI, it doesn't have to think like us to be good at something. It finds its own way to succeed.
Which, I mean, that's kind of what makes it both exciting and a little scary. Like, what if we create something we don't even fully understand?
That's the big question, right? For another time, maybe. For now, let's look at how some of these algorithms actually work. You know, get a little more in the weeds.
Yeah, let's get technical. So this source mentions a bunch of different algorithms, but there's one called Random Forest. It sounds more like a fantasy novel, haha.
I know, right? But it's a cool analogy, honestly.
Yeah.
Imagine a forest, but instead of trees, you have these decision trees. Each one looks at the data a little differently. And the forest, it combines all the results, so they're kind of like voting on the best solution.
A democracy for algorithms. I love it.
Right. And we won't get into too much detail now, but this source, it also talks about neural networks. That's the foundation for deep learning, which is a whole other level.
We could talk about this all day, I can already tell, but let's zoom out for a sec. Why does this even matter? How is AI impacting our lives now?
That is the question. And this source, they make some really interesting points. Think about like translation software. It's gotten so much better. And AI is a big reason for that.
Oh, totally. I remember when those programs were a joke. Now I use them all the time.
Right. And it's not just translation. AI-powered voice recognition, too. Used to be so bad, and now it's everywhere. Our phones, homes, cars.
I dictate like half my emails now. Never thought I'd say that.
Exactly. AI, it's weaving its way into everything, often without us even realizing it.
But with all that potential, are there also downsides? Things we should be worried about?
That's the flip side, right? And the source talks about this, too. As AI gets more powerful, we got to think about the ethics of it all. Like algorithms, they're made by people. And people, well, we're biased. And those biases, they can sneak into the algorithms. Could lead to some really unfair outcomes.
That makes sense. So even if AI itself isn't good or bad, it's all about how we use it, right?
Exactly. And as AI keeps evolving, we have to be having these conversations,
Right.
making sure we're developing it responsibly for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a lot to process for sure. And it's not just about like robots taking over or whatever. It's about how AI is already changing things now, and the choices we make because of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What role do we want AI to play? That's the question we need to be asking. The tech is obviously powerful, but it's on us to steer it in the right direction.
Which is why I'm really glad we dug into all this. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, the fear, all of that, but actually getting what AI is, how it ticks, that's how we take back some control.
Totally agree. Knowledge is power, right?
Mhm.
Especially with something this big, this impactful. The more we understand, the better prepared we are for whatever's next.
So to everyone listening out there, here's something to think about. As you're going about your day, just notice AI. It's probably there more than you realize. That news feed you're scrolling, your GPS telling you about traffic. AI is often the brains behind it all. This isn't some far off thing anymore. It's here, it's changing all the time, and it's shaping our world. So keep asking those questions. Stay curious because the future of AI, it's not set in stone. We're all figuring it out together.